This is Healthy Souls with Father Nicholas Lowe, helping you to live a Christ-filled life in today's world. Father Nicholas is the pastor of St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, Florida.
So today we're beginning a brand new sermon series, and it's called Heroes. And I love the word hero. The word hero is defined as someone who has tremendous courage, they've accomplished amazing achievements, and they have noble qualities. Every one of us have heroes in our life. Perhaps maybe one of your heroes is someone that's sitting right next to you right now. Maybe that hero is a teacher, a friend. I think for me, my hero, one of them, is my own mother. We all have heroes in our everyday. But just like we have heroes in our day, there's also heroes in the days of the Bible and in the days of the early church. One of the reasons why we have icons in our church is not just to decor the walls of our church, which they beautifully do, but they're also there to show us who the heroes are of our faith. Take, for example, the icon of the resurrection. It's a very unique icon, and many of us obviously hone in on that of Christ, who's in the center of the icon, his resurrection. But what's very interesting on almost every icon of the resurrection that you'll see is always on his left side are the heroes of our faith from the Old Testament. And on his right side are the heroes of our faith in the New Testament. They have these heroes in our church to inspire us. They are there to show us how they lived so that we can learn how to live. I think they'd be telling us, look how we were a hero in our day so that you can learn how to be a hero in your day. We all have these heroes that speak to us on a day-to-day basis. And today I just want to highlight just one of them. Her name is Rebecca. She's a mother. She's found in the Old Testament. And if you don't know much about Rebecca, many people don't know, and that's okay. That's one of the reasons why this series is a teaching series. But Rebecca is found in the very first book in the Old Testament. Let me kind of give you a little bit of a setting of how Rebecca enters into the Bible. You know that Abraham is married to a woman named Sarah. They have a child named Isaac. Back in those days, the Jewish custom was that the parents would go and search out a bride for their son. The son wouldn't go look for a bride. The parents of the groom, of the son, would go out and search for the bride. And so Sarah in life passes away, and Abraham is left to find a bride for his son Isaac. Abraham is getting up in age. He remembers the promise that God said to him that you'll be the father of many nations. And he's trying to figure out, how can I go and find a bride for my son Isaac? And so Abraham asked one of his friends, his servant, but they were very close friends. His name is Eliezer. And he says to Eliezer, listen, I'm old, but I want you to go out and go back to my homeland. And I want you to look for a wife, not in the way in which she communicates, but look at the way in which she acts. Find this person, it would be a great favor for me. Eliezer says, sir, I will do anything for you. He leaves and starts going back to Abraham's homeland. And as he's going there, he begins to pray. He says, God, I'm looking to find happiness for my master, Abraham. I want him to not be worried about his son, Isaac, and trying to find the right bride for them. So I want you, Lord, to help me find the right wife for Isaac. And when I go there, this is how I'd like for you to let me know that I have found the right wife. I want to go and I'm going to get some water from a little area, a little pond, a little well. And as I'm going to get water for myself, she's going to come out of her house. And not only is she going to give me water, but she's going to go on the offensive to give not only me water, but the 10 camels that I have with me water as well. He didn't even finish the prayer when here comes Rebecca holding a 5-gallon urn on her shoulder. She walks out to Eliezer, who she has no idea who he is, and she says, you look thirsty. Let me give you some water to drink. She starts giving him some water. And then she says to him, you know what? your camels look like they need some water to drink. They've been on a long journey. And she proceeds to give water to all 10 of those camels. On the surface, you might think, wow, that's not that extraordinary or exciting. She just went out and gave some water. But let me give you a context of how this would have looked back in those days. For a woman to come out of her house carrying a 5-gallon urn, she would have had to not only be an extraordinary woman of courage to communicate with a man, but she also would have been someone who was a great faith. Because if you think about it, if you do any studying on camels, and I tend to kind of study all these little different nuances that are found in the Bible, but a camel can drink 30 gallons of water in 15 minutes. So let's just say hypothetically that Rebecca just gives 20 gallons of water to every one of those 10 camels. It would have been the equivalent of 200 gallons of water. If that urn, which most of those urns were about 5 gallons, could store about 5 gallons, she would have had to make 40 trips back and forth to every one of those camels to give them water. Then, if you think about it, let's just say hypothetically that she does those 40 trips. Let's say hypothetically, it's just 3 minutes to go from getting the water from the well to feeding the camel and then coming back. Just conservatively, 3 minutes. She would have been going nonstop for 2 hours, bringing 200 gallons of water to those camels, to someone who she has no idea who he is. And in that moment, just so you all know, Eliezer's prayers are answered. Isaac would end up marrying Rebecca. And she's one of the few women, if you've been one that's been married in the Orthodox Church, she's one of the few women, and specifically one of the few moms, that is mentioned in every single wedding service. And I think if she was to give any of us some advice, as a hero of our faith, what would she tell us? I think she'd tell us a message that we hear over 15% of in the New Testament. Half of the New Testament parables are about the topic that she would tell us all to do. What would that topic be? Be overly generous. Be overly generous. And so how can we as a society, we look at these heroes of our faith, how can we model that kind of hero in our faith? And I think there's 3 ways that we become a hero in our faith, in our day. And one is this: be overly generous by giving first. You know, so often we wait for our feelings to catch up with us in order for us to give. And let me just kind of take a side note on this. If you ever let your feelings lead you, it will lead you astray. Feelings lie to you. We don't live based upon pressure of a feeling. We live by principles of our faith. And so when we give first, we're not waiting for Father Nicholas to give us an inspirational sermon about stewardship to give. We're not waiting till we hear about someone who's sick to call them. We're not waiting till we hear that someone's in need to go and minister to them. No, we are a church that gives first. We're looking for opportunities that I'm going to give. And some of you, can I just tell you, if you're in a state of depression or if you're in a state of unhappiness, one of the greatest ways to get yourself out of that is through generosity, being overly generous towards people. Give first. Number 2 is when you give cheerfully. I always find this quite interesting that sometimes as a society, when we want to give things, especially to things that are that kind of make us uncomfortable, sometimes we're a little bit reluctant. We don't like to give sometimes. We can kind of have a sour attitude. But let me just kind of give this in context. God doesn't want your gift if you're not happy giving the gift. In his mind, he's saying, if you're uncomfortable giving me back a portion of what I already gave you, that you didn't earn, that I gave you, if you're unhappy doing that, then look, keep it for you and you'll have your reward here on planet Earth. But if you want to give and give cheerfully, that reward will be for you in the kingdom of heaven. And my encouragement for you is, and one of the things that we pride ourselves on in our church, we don't talk a lot about money. You have a basket in the very far back of the church. We depend on you to know, this is what I have to do. I have to give. But I also want to challenge you, give cheerfully. If you can't give back to God what He already gave you, a small amount, then keep it. You'll have your reward here. I'm talking about a reward in the kingdom of heaven. And the number 3 is, after you've given first, you've given cheerfully, give to make a difference. I think about the moms that were part of this church back in 1916. The moms who worked tirelessly. And I will tell you, their blood, their sweat, and their tears are some of the main reasons why we're in our church today, and one of the reasons why we're moving to a whole new complex in just a few months from now. And I will tell you that we stand on the shoulders of moms and women and motherly influences who are giants in our faith. And one thing about our community, if you don't know, is we love to honor our past. But can I just give you a little bit of a transition now? I hope that our future generations, the future priests, the future people that are going to be filling those pews that you're in now, look back to you and this generation and say, you know what? That generation, they gave to make a difference. That what they gave to us made a difference in our lives. For me, on a personal level, I will tell you as a priest, sometimes people think, well, Father Nick, you're so calm on the outside. I oftentimes think I'm like a little duck. You know, I'm calm on the water, on the top of the surface of the water, but underneath that water, I'm just flapping away. I'm just going. And I say this respectfully, yes, I love all of you, and yes, I care about you, but I'm doing this to give, to make a difference. That when I go before the Lord, I'm able to say, Lord, I gave it all. I gave to this community to make a difference. So should also our attitude be. I leave you with this. I know this is a very serious conversation, so let me give you something to laugh about. There's this story about this wife and her husband. They were having this end-of-life conversation. And the husband's about ready to breathe his last breath, and he tells his wife, listen, I loved you and I've always loved you. But when I breathe my last breath, I want all the money that we have earned for you to put it in a box and bury it with me in my casket. And then he breathes his last breath. So the wife, knowing that she wanted to fulfill a promise to her husband, who said that he wanted all the money to be put in a box in the casket, so she goes, and at the funeral service, the priest is saying all the final prayers over him, and they're about ready to close the casket. And the wife says, wait a second, Father. And she goes and she brings this large box, and she puts it on top of him. And she says, now you can close the casket. And so the priest closes the casket with that box there, and everyone is sitting there in amazement that how this woman, this wife, put all their money in that box and put it in the casket. And so one of her friends comes up to her and says, you know, that was one of the most honorable things that I've ever seen anyone do, to put all that money in that box with your husband. Did you really give all that money back in that box for your husband? She said, I did. I wrote a check. Just something to keep you laughing about. That was a delayed reaction, church family. Come on now. All right. What's my point? It's not going with you. You're not going to take it with you. And my encouragement for you is think about Rebecca. All she had was her biceps and a 5-gallon urn. And she served, and she became, just so you all know, the great grandmother of Jesus Christ because of that one act of being overly generous. So give first, give cheerfully, and make sure that when you give to make a difference. Learn how they were a hero in their day so that you can be a hero in your day.
We invite you to join Father Nick and his wife, Dr. Roxanne Lowe, on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month for their Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls call-in show at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Ancient Faith Talk.